He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has. Epictetus, you've been gripping too tightly, chasing things that slip through your hands, holding on to what no longer wants to stay, a relationship, a career, an outcome that refuses to happen. And every time it doesn't go your way, frustration eats at you. You start questioning your worth. But what if the problem isn't what left? What if the real problem is your need to control it all? This is where Stoic detachment changes everything. In this video, we'll dive deep into the power of letting go. You'll discover how to stop forcing life, how to release what drags you down, and how to become the kind of man who no longer begs, but stands. You'll learn why, if it's meant for you, it will come, isn't passive wishful thinking, but a position of strength, clarity, and confidence. You're not the only one tired of clinging to things that don't serve you anymore. You're not alone in the battle to stay calm while everything feels uncertain. This is for men who want to reclaim their focus, rebuild their mindset, and rise with Stoic self-discipline. Detach not because you don't care, but because you're ready to act without being owned by the outcome. Stay with me. What's meant for you isn't lost. It's just waiting for you to let go. 1. Clinging creates suffering. Look back at the moments that broke you, not just bruised, but truly cracked something inside. Chances are, most of that pain didn't come from what happened. It came from your refusal to let go. A relationship is already fading. A dream that no longer fits the man you've become. An image of yourself that needed to be burned, but you kept polishing. We suffer not because life takes things from us, but because we try to grip what is no longer ours. We cling out of fear, not reason. And that fear becomes a prison. You weren't destroyed because something was left. You were destroyed because you couldn't leave it first. It's easy to pretend letting go is weakness, that walking away means quitting. But a man who clings to the wrong thing drains his strength faster than a man who stands alone. Stoicism doesn't tell you to care less. It teaches you to care correctly. To care with awareness, not attachment. To give your best effort without chaining your identity to the result. Epictetus said it simply, we suffer not from the events in our lives, but from our judgment about them. Your grief isn't proof of love. Often it's proof of ego, of obsession with control, of a silent hope that you could twist reality to fit your will. But reality doesn't bend. There was a man I met who held on to a business he built from the ground up. For years, it drained him, emotionally, financially, spiritually. Every sign said it was time to move on. But he couldn't. Not because it was thriving, but because he built it. He clung to the image of himself as someone who never quits. He called it loyalty. But really, it was fear. Fear of starting over, of becoming a beginner again. And so he bled himself dry to protect a version of his identity that had already died. This is the weight men carry in silence, holding on to titles, women, dreams, even pain, because letting go feels like losing control. But here's the truth. If something needs to be held tightly just to stay, it was never yours to begin with. Stoicism draws the line between what you own and what owns you. You may have a career, but if losing it destroys your sense of self, then it owns you. You may have a partner, but if their distance cripples your composure, then your peace was never yours. It was rented through them. A Stoic man doesn't cling. He engages fully but detaches freely. He acts and then releases. He gives and never chains his worth to what returns. Letting go isn't passive, it's not silence. It's an inner posture, grounded, unmoved by gain or loss. And this posture is built. You don't wake up one day detached. You train it. You examine everything you hold on to and ask, does this serve the man I'm becoming, or just the boy I used to be? And if the answer is the latter, you drop it. Without rage, without drama, just discipline. Because every time you refuse to let go, you carry dead weight into the next season of your life. And life won't wait for you to unload it. It will simply move on without you. Just like that woman you kept chasing when her mind was already gone. Just like that job that took everything and gave nothing. Just like that version of yourself that outlived its usefulness years ago. What most men don't realize is this. Detachment doesn't make you cold. It makes you clear. And clarity is what gives birth to power. A man who doesn't cling is a man who sees options. He isn't afraid to lose because he never chains himself to outcomes. And that's why the world moves toward him. That's why what's meant for him finds him. Because he no longer sends the signal of desperation. He sends the signal of readiness. If you want something real to come your way, you have to create space for it. You can't receive anything with fists closed around what's already gone. Detachment isn't stepping back, it's stepping up. It's looking life in the eye and saying, I no longer fear the absence of what was. I trust in the presence of what's right. Clinging creates suffering. And if you're suffering, it may not be because life has taken too much, but because you've refused to release what's no longer meant for you. So start here, one grip at a time. Peel your fingers off whatever owns you and stand still. Stand tall, stand ready, because what's yours can't come while your hands are full of what's not. 2. Accept reality. Regain control. Life is not a blueprint designed to match your expectations. It never was. It bends for no man. The moment you believe the world owes you something, order, fairness, predictability, you begin to suffer. Not because life betrays you, but because you resist its nature. The breakup you didn't see coming, the job you gave everything to but still lost, the plan that made perfect sense until it collapsed in your hands. These aren't failures of the universe. They're reminders that you're not in control of the script, but you are in control of how you show up when the script changes. You wake up, ready to conquer the day, but within hours, everything shifts. A call you didn't expect. A conversation that ruins your focus. A bill, a betrayal, a door slammed shut. Most men lose their edge not because of what happened, but because they wanted reality to be something it never promised. They fight what is, and they lose. Every time. Stoicism doesn't ask you to like every outcome. It demands that you accept it. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Acceptance isn't soft. It's not passive. It's the stance of a man who refuses to be thrown off course by a storm he can't control. He sees the terrain exactly as it is, and then he decides, how do I move forward from here? Think about the last time something blindsided you. You tried to fix it. You reacted. Maybe you got angry. Maybe you spiraled. But did any of it change the facts? No. All it did was steal your time, your focus, your composure. A Stoic doesn't do that. He doesn't waste himself on resistance. He observes, he adjusts, and then he acts. There's a man out there right now, maybe it's you, who built his life around a single relationship. She was his anchor, his escape, his motivation. And then, one day, she left. No warning, no closure, just silence. And instead of stepping back to see what's next, he spends months chasing why. Replaying texts, reading signs, trying to control something that's already gone. That's not a strength, that's resistance, disguised as hope. A Stoic accepts that she's gone, not because it doesn't hurt, but because chasing a ghost won't bring her back and won't rebuild the man. This mindset doesn't belong to ancient philosophy alone. Look at David Goggins, a man who embraced pain, not avoided it. When his body broke, he didn't curse reality, he adapted his approach. When the Navy SEALs said no, he didn't spiral, he recalibrated and came back stronger. That's the essence of Stoic resilience, accepting what is and working with it, not against it. Reality will never consult your preferences, but it will respect your response. You don't win by being angry at what you can't change. You win by facing it, steady and sober. That's where your control lies. Acceptance puts you back in the fight. It brings clarity, because once you stop wasting energy resisting what is, you start seeing clearly what can be done next. And that shift, from resistance to readiness, that's the beginning of real power. Every man has a moment when life doesn't go his way. Some collapse, some complain, but a few, a rare few, adjust their posture and move anyway. You want to be that man. The one who doesn't demand that the world be easy, but who meets it on its terms and still refuses to be broken. You do that by training your mind not to crave control, but to master response. By reminding yourself, I don't control what happens. I control what I do next. That's the leverage, that's the advantage, and that's the mindset that allows what's meant for you to actually find you. Because now you're no longer chasing, no longer trapped in false hope or emotional paralysis. You've returned to the present. You've grounded your power. Don't waste another day resisting a life that's already unfolding. Stand in it. Own your response. That's where everything changes. That's where you become unshakable. 3. You don't see the whole picture yet. Look closely at the greatest success stories. Almost all of them start with a moment that looked like failure. A door slammed shut, a brutal rejection, a fall so hard it seemed final. But in time, it revealed itself not as an ending, but as a hidden beginning. What you call misfortune today may one day be the foundation of everything you were meant to become. The Stoics didn't ask whether something was good or bad. They asked only this: is it within my control? And if not, they kept walking, because they knew that meaning unfolds slowly. Often through pain. You lose the job you built your life around. The title vanishes, the structure collapses, everything in you screams, this wasn't supposed to happen, but it did. And now you're standing in the rubble, unsure if anything is salvageable. That's where most men quit, but not the Stoic. He doesn't beg the universe for mercy. He narrows his focus, breathes, and asks one thing: what can I still control? A man who was laid off after 15 years in one industry once told me his greatest regret wasn't losing his job. It was the 5 months he spent trying to make sense of it. 5 months wasted in bitterness and questions that had no answer. When he finally let go of the need to understand, he saw an opening. Something unrelated, a skill he never valued, became the seed of a new direction. Today, he runs a business he didn't even know he had in him. But it took the loss to unlock it. We forget that life sees further than we do. What feels like chaos may be precision in disguise. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." The obstacle isn't blocking your path, it is the path. That truth is violent at first, but if you sit with it long enough, it becomes liberating. Imagine this: a farmer wakes up to find his only horse has run away. The village says, "What terrible luck." The next day, the horse returns and brings 3 wild horses with it. The village cheers. What great luck! While taming one of the horses, the farmer's son breaks his leg. Again, what misfortune! Soon after, soldiers came to draft all the able-bodied young men. His son, with the broken leg, stays. The villagers are silent. But the farmer, the entire time, says only, "Who knows if it's good or bad?" That's what the Stoic man understands. You don't label the moment, you outlive it, you watch it evolve, you give life room to reveal its logic. That kind of patience is power. It doesn't mean you sit still, it means you don't attach final meaning to what isn't final. J.K. Rowling was turned down by multiple publishers, rejected, disregarded, living off welfare. She said later, "Rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life." She didn't force an outcome, she wrote anyway, she moved anyway, and when the time was right, the world caught up. That's not luck. That's detachment from needing instant results. Detachment, in the Stoic sense, isn't apathy. It's alignment with the truth. You only control your actions, not the timeline, not the outcomes, not how people respond. You may plant the seed today, but the fruit comes when it's ready, not when you demand it. So don't rush to judge this moment. Don't declare defeat because something was left or broke or failed. Ask instead, what could this be preparing me for? Ask with strength, not desperation. Ask not to make the pain prettier, but to make your mind stronger. The more you release your need to define the moment, the more you leave space for meaning to arrive. Every setback contains information. If you're willing to stand still long enough, without forcing resolution, you begin to see. Patterns emerge. Strength is built. A deeper version of yourself is formed. One who doesn't fear loss because he's seen what loss can create. What feels like loss today may be life setting you up for the thing you wouldn't have been ready for otherwise. Trust the process, not blindly, but bravely. Trust it by doing what's in front of you with full presence, full clarity, and zero expectation. You don't see the full picture yet. You're not supposed to. Your job is not to decode the future. Your job is to act, to detach, and to hold the line, even when the meaning isn't visible. Especially then, because that's where true power grows, in silence, in the unknown, in your refusal to quit while the story is still being written. 4. Stop forcing. Start trusting. You can't force a flower to bloom before its season. You water it, you give it light, and then you wait. Because nature doesn't answer to your urgency. It follows its own rhythm. Life works the same way. The more you push, the more resistance you create. The more you demand results on your timeline, the further you drift from the outcome. And yet most men don't understand this. They confuse pressure with progress. But real growth, the kind that lasts, doesn't respond to force. It responds to patience, alignment, and discipline. There's a point in every man's journey where he wants something so badly, he starts to press. He tries to speed up the process. He reaches out too often. He doubles down when silence would serve him better. Whether it's a career move, a relationship, a financial leap, he feels it slipping. And instead of stepping back, he grips tighter. And that grip is what strangles the very thing he's chasing. He thinks he's losing momentum. In reality, he's losing clarity. He's no longer moving with intent. He's reacting from fear. A man once told me he had applied to 50 different companies in 2 weeks after getting laid off. Not out of clarity, but panic. Every rejection felt like personal failure. He kept tweaking his resume, rewriting his story, selling a version of himself he didn't even believe in. When he finally stopped, not out of surrender but exhaustion, he got a call. A position he hadn't forced, one that matched his actual path. He didn't chase it. He became the man who could receive it. That's the difference. The Stoics never preached passivity, but they warned against impatience. Epictetus said, "Don't seek for everything to happen as you wish it would, but rather wish that everything happens as it actually does. Then your life will flow well." This is detachment in motion. You act, you give your best, and then you release the outcome. You don't sit and beg life to unfold faster. You keep moving, with calm, with presence, and with trust. Tiger Woods, at the peak of his game, once went into a multi-year slump. Most men in his position would have tried to reinvent everything. Change coaches, change identity. But he didn't force a comeback. He focused on quiet, focused training. He refined what mattered. He stayed present. And when the time was right, the victories returned. Not because he pushed harder, but because he aligned better. That's Stoic patience. That's what it looks like when you stop reacting and start trusting. You're not here to bend time. You're here to match its pace. You don't control when the season turns, but you control what kind of man you become while you wait. That's why forcing is dangerous. It shifts your focus outward. It makes you obsess over results instead of mastery. It ties your identity to what hasn't arrived, and in doing so, it makes you fragile, breakable, reactive. Detachment isn't about carelessness. It's about composure. It's about knowing when to move and when to stay still. It's about building in silence while the world misunderstands you, and trusting that when the time is right, your preparation will collide with opportunity. If you're trying to force something right now, someone's attention, an outcome, a breakthrough, step back. Ask yourself, am I moving from strength or from fear? Am I acting or am I grasping? A man who acts with patience doesn't just get better results, he becomes better. Because the discipline required to wait without anxiety builds a stronger mind, a steadier hand, a sharper presence. There is a rhythm to life. You are not here to control it. You are here to move in harmony with it, precise, intentional, and unbothered by delay. This is where real men rise, not in speed, but in stillness. Not in noise, but in restraint. Let go of the need to force. Trust the process. You are not falling behind. You are being shaped quietly, sharpened in places no one sees. And when your moment comes, you won't chase it. You'll simply be ready. 5. Master your mind. Stay unshaken. The world outside is noisy, unstable, and constantly shifting. Markets crash, people disappoint, plans fall apart. But strength isn't found in controlling the chaos. It's found in controlling yourself. A trained mind is like a lighthouse, unmoved while the storm rages. It doesn't need the sea to calm down. It just needs its own foundation to hold. That kind of inner stability doesn't come from wishful thinking. It comes from discipline, from choosing not to react when everything begs for a reaction, from building mental resilience, the way a warrior sharpens his blade, not just for battle, but for the moments in between. Most men collapse, not because life is hard, but because their minds are soft. They've never trained to focus, never developed emotional discipline. They get pulled into every argument, every opinion, every outcome they can't control. And when that happens, the mind becomes a battlefield. one they lose without ever realizing the enemy was inside. Stoicism doesn't tell you to shut off emotions. It tells you to master them. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Most never realize it. They spend their lives reacting. But the man who can pause, observe, and then act, that man holds real power. Picture this. A man is sitting in traffic. A car cuts him off, dangerously close. His blood surges. He's seconds from leaning on the horn, rolling down the window and shouting something he'll regret. But he doesn't. He grips the wheel, takes a slow breath, reminds himself, "I don't control him. I only control myself." That moment doesn't go viral. It's quiet, unseen, but it's one of the most powerful victories a man can claim. Mastery over impulse. This is where detachment begins. Not in detaching from the world, but from the need to control it emotionally. You don't train the mind so it can feel nothing. You train it so it doesn't fall apart at everything. Stillness is not emptiness. It's strength under control. The Stoic man isn't cold. He's composed. He doesn't yell when provoked. He doesn't spiral when plans shift. He doesn't need the world to behave a certain way in order to remain grounded. He chooses his state. That's real freedom. That's what detachment protects. The integrity of your focus, your peace, your direction. Most men want peace, but only if the world allows it. Stoicism flips that. It teaches you to cultivate peace within, especially when the world denies it. You may not control the outcome of that business deal, the tone of that woman's voice, or the decisions made in rooms you'll never enter. But you control how many seconds you let it live in your head. You control whether it makes you reactive or makes you sharpen your patience. And you do that by returning again and again to the calm center of your awareness, no matter what shakes the surface. The ancient Stoics weren't monks hiding from reality. They were men who ruled empires, led armies, and advised kings. And yet their writings speak most about controlling the self, not others. Because they knew, if your mind is undisciplined, your actions will be weak. And if your actions are weak, you will lose, even in victory. Detachment from mental chaos is not escapism. It's a command. You detach so you can respond instead of react. You detach not to feel less, but to remain sharp when others fall apart. Build this through daily practices. Wake early. Sit in silence. Confront your thoughts before the world throws its noise at you. Journal your triggers. Track your reactions. And ask yourself, where did I lose control? Not out there, but in here. Build a routine that centers you, that sharpens your awareness, that trains your responses like a fighter preparing for a silent war. Because most of the battles you'll face won't come from outside. They'll come from within. The world doesn't get easier, but you can get stronger. And when your mind becomes unshaken, when you learn to stand still in the storm, everything changes. You don't chase calm, you become it. You don't need guarantees, you carry your own grounding. That's the kind of man nothing owns. And that's who the world eventually follows, the one who didn't flinch when everything else did. Train your mind. The storm isn't the problem, your reaction is. And once you master that, you become untouchable. 6. Control is an illusion. I used to force everything. I had a plan, I had goals, and I expected life to obey. I pushed harder every time things didn't go my way. I tightened my grip. But the more I tried to control the uncontrollable, the more exhausted I became. My mind was tense. My body followed. Nothing flowed. Everything felt like friction. Until I stopped. Until I accepted that control at its core was a lie I kept telling myself to feel safe. The moment I let go, not with apathy, but with clarity, everything shifted. Life didn't get easier. I just stopped swimming upstream. There's a point every man reaches where he has to ask, is this effort strength or is it desperation? Stoicism makes the distinction brutally clear. You do what you can, you prepare, you act, and then you release. You don't beg the wind to blow in your favor. You adjust your sail and stay sharp. Epictetus said it like a blade to the throat. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. When you forget that, you suffer. When you remember it, you gain leverage. Picture this. You're waiting to hear back from an opportunity you think will change your life. You check your inbox every hour. You can't focus on anything else. You replay every word of your pitch, your interview, and your message. You imagine worst-case scenarios. You script imaginary responses. You spiral. Days pass. The silence feels unbearable. You feel powerless. Not because they haven't replied, but because you've anchored your peace to something you don't control. That's not ambition, that's dependency. Now imagine handling that same situation differently. You send the email, you walk away, you return to your process, you train, you read, you build. And if the reply comes, good. If it doesn't, you're still whole. That's Stoic detachment. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care correctly. You give effort, not identity. You act, but you don't attach. You prepare for outcomes, but you don't break when they don't arrive. Control is a seductive illusion. It gives men the feeling of certainty, but what it actually does is weaken them. Because when the illusion breaks, and it always does, the man who depended on it shatters with it. A Stoic doesn't depend on outcomes, he depends on his principles. That's why he can walk through fire and not burn. Because he wasn't trying to control the flame, he was controlling his steps. Think of a river. It doesn't fight the rocks in its path. It moves around them, adjusts, flows, and in doing so, it wears down mountains. That's the kind of power most men miss, the kind that bends without breaking, the kind that doesn't need force to make progress, the kind that survives because it doesn't resist the inevitable. Detachment isn't about stepping back from life. It's about stepping back from the fantasy that you're in charge of it all. The man who understands this doesn't panic when things fall apart. He adapts. He lets go of what he can't hold and focuses on what he still commands: his thoughts, his responses, his direction. That's not passivity. That's control over the only thing that ever mattered. Some of the most painful moments in your life came not from what happened, but from your refusal to accept it. You thought the relationship would last forever. It didn't. You thought the plan would work. It collapsed. But the pain deepened because you clung to control long after control was gone. What if instead you let it flow? What if you chose to respond with precision instead of panic? That shift doesn't just change how you feel, it changes how you live. So stop measuring your power by how much you can force. Start measuring it by how well you can move without forcing anything. A man who flows with life doesn't drift. He doesn't surrender to chaos. He reads the terrain and adjusts his pace. He drops expectations like dead weight and carries only what strengthens him: awareness, focus, presence. That's the Stoic way. Not loud, not flashy, just unstoppable. Control is an illusion, but clarity is real. And when you drop the first, you gain the second. Flow like the river, adapt or suffer. Those are your only two options. One keeps you stuck, the other keeps you moving. Choose wisely. 7. Forgive yourself, then move forward. If a close friend made a mistake, you'd probably find the words to forgive him. You'd understand, put things in perspective and help him move on. But when it's you who failed, the rules change. You replay it, you punish yourself, you call it accountability. But it's not. It's self-inflicted damage disguised as strength, and it does nothing but slow you down. What most men don't see is this: being harsh on yourself doesn't build discipline, it builds hesitation, regret, paralysis. The man who never forgives himself stays stuck, not because he can't move, but because he won't let himself. Stoicism isn't about suppressing guilt. It's about confronting it cleanly, then using it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." You can't fully live if you're chained to who you were. A Stoic man looks at the past with clarity. If he failed, he learns. If he hurt someone, he owns it. But then he moves. He does not waste his strength trying to rewrite what's already written. You wake up still thinking about what happened months ago. That one decision, that careless word, that deal you fumbled. You say you've moved on, but your mind hasn't. It circles back, keeps whispering what you should have done. And that voice grows louder the more you listen. It drains your focus, weakens your posture, and blurs your direction. But here's the thing. That mistake has already cost you once. Don't let it keep costing you every single day after. There's a man sitting in silence after ruining something he once cared about. Maybe it was a relationship. Maybe it was a business. He acted out of impulse, fear, or ego. And now he thinks the path forward is penance. Years of self-judgment, isolation, and emotional withdrawal. But that's not redemption. That's stagnation. True accountability looks different. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's steady. It's when you say, I did that, I accept it, and now I'm responsible for what happens next. Self-compassion is not letting yourself off the hook. It's sharpening your edge so you don't repeat the same mistake again. It's the difference between bleeding endlessly and stitching the wound. A man who learns to forgive himself becomes more dangerous, not softer. Because he's no longer afraid of falling, he knows how to rise, faster, wiser, cleaner. Detachment applies here too. You are not your past. You're not even your worst moment. But if you keep attaching your identity to that moment, you won't become anything else. You'll live on repeat. And life doesn't wait for men stuck in guilt. It flows past them. The Stoic recognizes the pattern. He cuts it at the root. No indulgence in shame, no spiraling into blame, just observation, correction, and forward motion. Think of a man standing by the river. He drops a stone into the current, watches the ripples, but he doesn't dive to chase the stone. He lets it go. The current will carry it away as long as he doesn't cling. That's how you handle the past. Let it drift. Watch it teach. But don't follow it. You have ground to cover. And your time isn't infinite. Self-compassion also means boundaries. Even with yourself, you don't let your worst thoughts speak unchecked. You don't allow old voices to take command. When they rise, you counter them with truth. I'm not that version anymore. I'm no longer that man. I'm moving forward now. And you back it up with action, quiet consistency, daily steps, and clear decisions. No one else will forgive you the way you need. Not fully, not deeply. That work is yours. And when you do it right, you don't need approval. You don't wait for someone to say you've done enough. You become enough through how you live now. That's the power of Stoic detachment. Not just from people or outcomes, but from the self you've already outgrown. You want to move forward? Start here. Release yourself from the chains you forged. Pick up what's still in your hands and walk. Because every day you waste in guilt is a day you could have used to rebuild. And every step you take in clarity silences the noise of the past. You can't rewrite what happened, but you can outlive it. And that begins the moment you choose to forgive. Not for weakness, but for freedom. 8. Progress isn't linear. The path of growth is never a straight line. Some days you'll feel unstoppable, disciplined, clear, aligned, and then, without warning, it fades. You break a habit you've built. You overreacted when you swore you'd stay calm. You slip, and in that moment your mind rushes to judgment. You think you've lost it all, that you've gone backward, but you haven't. You're just human. The Stoics never promised perfection. They prepared for imperfection. What defines you is not the fall, but the posture you take when you rise. You've probably had a moment like this. You've been consistent for weeks. You've said no to distractions. You've trained your mind. You've focused. But then something cracks. You miss your routine, you spiral into old habits, you lose control. And what hurts most isn't what happened, it's the voice in your head whispering, "See, you're not who you thought you were." That voice is a liar. Progress doesn't die in a single failure. It only dies when you believe that failure is who you are. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Don't waste the rest of your life worrying at others unless it affects the common good. It will keep you from doing anything useful." That includes worrying about your past self, worrying about slipping, worrying about how you looked when you fell. It's noise. And a Stoic man doesn't feed noise. He strips it away. He looks at what happened. He names it for what it was. Then he asks the only question that matters. What do I do now? There's a man out there who's rebuilding after relapse. He was doing well, physically, mentally, emotionally. But something knocked him off track. Maybe it was burnout. Maybe it was grief. Maybe just a string of bad days stacked too close. And now he's sitting in guilt, watching the calendar, counting how long it's been since he was on. But that thinking keeps him down. He doesn't need a clean streak to be worthy of forward motion. He just needs a clean decision. I get back up now. Progress is messy. The Stoics never chased perfection. They chased improvement. Slow, relentless, quiet. You don't grow by rising once and staying flawless. You grow by rising every time you fall, with sharper awareness, stronger discipline, cleaner intent. Detachment isn't just about letting go of what you can't control. It's also about letting go of your obsession with smooth progress. You are not here to look perfect. You are here to get better, no matter how many steps it takes. The mind tricks you into thinking a setback means you failed. But a Stoic sees it differently. A setback is information. If you lost control, what triggered it? If you broke a routine, what distracted you? If you fell into doubt, what voice did you believe? That's how you sharpen. Not by mourning the fall, but by understanding the terrain that caused it. Detachment from your emotions doesn't mean you don't feel them. It means you don't obey them. And guilt, regret, shame, those are emotions that deserve no leadership over your life. Progress isn't measured by how long you go without failing. It's measured by how quickly you recover when you do. Every time you return to clarity, to structure, to stillness, you're reinforcing the man you're becoming. It's not about starting over. It's about starting from here, from this exact spot, with no theatrics, no apologies, just calm recalibration. Detach from the image of perfection. It's slowing you down. Stop waiting for flawless days. Stop needing streaks to feel valid. Just show up. Whether it's day 1 or day 100, show up like a man who knows what he's building won't be built in a straight line. And remind yourself, nothing worth having grows without resistance, including you. There will be more setbacks, more falls. That's not a threat, it's a guarantee. But when they come, you'll know what to do. You won't panic, you won't collapse. You'll take a breath, gather your stillness, and take the next step. Not for show, not for ego, but because you've trained for this. You've built discipline not just to succeed, but to recover. That's what makes you resilient. That's what makes you different. And that's why, even when the road breaks under your feet, you'll keep walking. Not because it's easy, but because it's yours. In a world that constantly pulls you toward noise, chaos, and the illusion of control, the power of detachment stands as a quiet form of strength. You've seen now that clinging leads to suffering, that resistance burns your energy, and that real control lies in how you respond, not in what you can manipulate. You've learned that progress isn't linear, and your worth isn't measured by flawless days, but by your willingness to rise again, sharper and more grounded than before. Detachment is not about caring less. It's about caring without being consumed. It's trusting that what's meant for you will come, not by force, but by presence. You don't need to chase outcomes. You need to prepare yourself, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, to receive what belongs to you when the timing aligns. That's the Stoic way: disciplined action, radical acceptance, and complete responsibility for your own mind. So begin with small steps. Train your attention. Let go of things beyond your control. Set your standards high, but hold them lightly. Watch your mind as you would an undisciplined horse, not with anger, but with firm awareness. This isn't about being perfect. It's about becoming precise, present, and untouchable where it matters most, within. And as you walk this path, remember, you're not alone. Every man wrestling with expectations, struggling with control, or searching for peace, he's walking beside you. If this message spoke to something in you, share your experience below. What are you learning to let go of? What's starting to shift inside you? Your story may help another man take his first step toward clarity, toward detachment, and toward true inner freedom. Your work begins now, not tomorrow, not when life gets easier, but here, in this moment of understanding.